Good morning. Let's learn kidney under the following headings: introduction, its location, its external features, its relations, its internal features, coverings, blood supply, nerve supply, and applied importance. First, let's see the introduction. Kidneys are pair of excretory organs which are located in the lumbar region. Okay, so if you see the vertebral extent, the kidney extends from the T11 spine, the spinous process of the T11, to L3 vertebral spine. Okay, up to the spinous process of the L3, T11 to L3. Okay, if you see the location, the right kidney is slightly lower when compared to that of the left kidney, and its upper pole is close to the midline when compared to that of the lower pole. Okay, the distance between the upper pole and the midline is almost 2.5 centimeter, whereas the distance between the lower pole and the midline is almost 7.5 centimeter. When you see the dimension, the kidney is almost 11 centimeters long and 6 centimeters wide. Okay, 11 centimeter long and 6 centimeter wide. And if you see the location, we can locate the kidney on the surface of the body by using Morison's parallelogram. So how to draw this Morison's parallelogram? Okay, so if you see the Morison's parallelogram, we can draw the upper limit of the parallelogram at the level of, this is the T11, okay, the spinous process of the T11 vertebrae, and lower limit at the, this is the spinous process. Here you will have the spinous process of L3 vertebrae. Okay, so upper and lower limit can be marked by the T11 and L3 vertebrae, and two vertical lines can be marked, one from 2.5 centimeter from the midline and the other one at 9 centimeter from the midline. So that will give you the Morison's parallelogram, the surface marking of the kidney from behind. External features of the kidney. So each kidney has got an upper pole, lower pole, the medial border, lateral border, anterior surface, and a posterior surface. Okay, it has got an upper pole. You see in this kidney, it has got an upper pole, lower pole, a medial concave border, the lateral convex border, anterior surface, and a posterior surface. So how to identify the anterior and the posterior surface is looking at the hilum. You can see at the hilum you have three structures in order. Anteriorly we have the vein, the renal vein, followed by the renal artery behind it, and posterior most structure will be the renal pelvis, which continues as the ureter. So anterior to posteriorly, the arrangement of structures in the hilum are the renal vein, the renal artery, and the renal pelvis, which is continuing as the ureter. Okay, this is how we identify the anterior and the posterior surface, and also whether it is right or the left kidney. Next, let's study the relations of the kidney. Okay, so to study the relations of the kidney, we should know the relative position of all the structures arranged in the abdomen from anterior to posterior. First, we will study the anterior relations of the right and the left kidney. The posterior relation is same for both the right and the left kidney. First, coming to the anterior relations of the right kidney, the medial part of the right kidney is overlapped by the C-shaped duodenum. Medial part is overlapped by the C-shaped duodenum. The upper part, that is the superior pole, is related to the right suprarenal gland. Is related to the right suprarenal gland, and the upper part is related to the liver. The upper part of the kidney is related to the liver. So what we have kept here is actually the liver. The lower part of the kidney is related to the hepatic flexure of the colon. You can see this is actually the hepatic flexure of the colon and the part of transverse colon. And in this gap, we will be having loops of jejunum also. So that is the anterior relation of right kidney. So once again, let's summarize the anterior relation of right kidney. We can see on the upper pole we have the right suprarenal gland. On the upper part we have the relation of the liver. On the medial aspect we have the duodenum. Okay, C-shaped duodenum has the relation. Then towards the lower part we have the hepatic flexure of the colon. Hepatic flexure, that is the bend of the colon, ascending colon becoming the transverse colon. And at the inferior lowermost part we have the loops of the jejunum as the anterior relation of right kidney. Next, let's study the anterior relation of the left kidney. For that, we'll keep some of the organs. So this is the pancreas, this is the stomach, which will continue as the duodenum here. Then we have the spleen, which is being attached or related to the tail of the pancreas here, and we have the transverse colon with the splenic flexure of the colon. Okay, now let's see the relations of the left kidney. If you see the left kidney, the upper pole is related to the left suprarenal gland, then the stomach, then the pancreas, spleen, and the transverse colon. Then here in the inferior pole we have coils of jejunum. So these are the anterior relation of the right and the left kidney. Let's see the same relations using a specimen. So anterior relation of kidney. We can see here this is the stomach, liver, transverse colon. It's the duodenum. Now just I am exposing the transverse colon. Now you can see these two are the kidneys. First let us see the right kidney anterior relation. See, the uppermost pole of the right kidney will be related to the suprarenal gland, right suprarenal gland. Then here it is related to the liver. You can see it is related to the liver. And along the medial aspect, along this medial margin or the medial aspect, it is related to this structure. This is the C-shaped duodenum. The C-shaped duodenum. It is related to C-shaped duodenum. Now, this is the transverse colon. So this part, along the outer part of the middle aspect of the kidney, right kidney, it is related to the anteriorly. It is related to the hepatic flexure of the colon. So this flexure here is actually the flexure between the ascending colon and the transverse colon. So hepatic flexure of the colon. Then and this area will be related to the coils of small intestine, that is the jejunum. Okay, that is about the anterior relation of right kidney. Now coming to the anterior relation of left kidney, you can see here anteriorly, you can see it is related to this is the pancreas. See, this is the head of the pancreas, neck of the pancreas, body of the pancreas, and the tail of the pancreas. So we can see it is related to anteriorly, it is related to pancreas and also the and also the left suprarenal gland. Then more laterally it is related to this structure. This is the spleen. On the upper part, more laterally it is related to spleen. Now superiorly it is also related to this structure. This is the stomach. You can see this is the stomach continuing as duodenum. Okay, it is related to stomach. Then along the lower part it is related to the transverse colon. So again we will keep the transverse colon in anatomical position. So the lower part is related to the transverse colon, and also this area is related to the loops of jejunum. Okay, this is about the anterior relation of right and the left kidney. Now coming to the posterior relation, this is the kidney. So the kidney rests on the posterior abdominal wall against these three muscles. We can see medially this is the psoas major muscle. Next is the quadratus lumborum here. So this is the quadratus lumborum, and this muscle what you see here is the origin of transverse abdominis. So these three muscles, along with that on the superior aspect we have diaphragm as the relation. So this is the arcuate ligaments. So that is the origin of diaphragm. So this is actually part of diaphragm. So diaphragm is also related to the superior aspect. Other than these muscles, posteriorly these are the nerves and the vessels which are related. One is the subcostal nerves and vessels. You can see this. This is the subcostal nerves and vessels. You can see it here. This is subcostal nerves and vessels. It's a iliohypogastric nerve and the ilioinguinal nerve. So these are the nerves and the vessels which are related on the posterior aspect of the kidney. So this relation is same on both right and the left side. Next, let's study about the coverings of the kidney. If you see the coverings of the kidney is intimately lined by this capsule. You can see it can be easily stripped off. Okay, this is called the renal capsule. This tissue is actually made up of fibrous tissue which is intimately covering the entire kidney. This can be easily stripped off from a healthy kidney. If the kidney is unhealthy, if it is having some problems, it can get adherent to the surface of the kidney. That is about the renal capsule. The next covering what we need to know is the renal fascia, that we can't see it here. It is very superficial covering. Okay, outside this renal capsule we have the renal fascia. This renal fascia has got two layers, one anterior layer and the other one is posterior layer. So you can consider this hand as the posterior layer, this is the anterior layer. So we have two layers which is loosely encircling the entire kidney. This renal fascia is otherwise called as the false capsule, and this renal fascia is loosely encircling the entire kidney along with the adrenal gland. This has got two layers, an anterior layer and a posterior layer. This anterior layer is called fascia of Geroda and the posterior layer is called fascia of Zuckerkandl. Okay, so anterior layer is called fascia of Geroda and the posterior layer is called fascia of Zuckerkandl. When traced upwards, the anterior layer and the posterior layer will fuse and then it will be enclosing the adrenal gland, then it will be attached to the inferior aspect of the diaphragm. If you trace downwards, this anterior and the posterior layer will not fuse with each other and it will be lost as it goes down. There is a variable amount of fat which is located between these two layers, and this fat is actually described as the perirenal fat. This perirenal fat will be acting as an important shock absorber for the kidney, and also it will be helping in keeping the kidney in a proper anatomical position. If this kidney, if the perirenal fat is lost in case of severe starvation, the kidney can sag down. Okay, from the anatomical position, it can sag down. In that case, the ureter can go in for kinking. Okay, this is called kinking of ureter. When this happens, so there can be blockage in the drainage of urine. Laterally also these two layers fuse with each other, and medially when you see it doesn't fuse with each other. Anterior layer will fuse with the great vessels, that is the aorta, and the posterior layer will go and fuse with that of the fascia in front of the lumbar vertebrae. Next, coming to the internal features. So the cut section of kidney has got outer cortex and inner medulla. Okay, so this is the outer cortex and this is the inner medulla. The inner medulla contains the renal pyramids. This renal pyramids will be ending in this terminal portion, the edge called the renal papillae. This renal papillae will be draining inside the minor calyx. You can see all these things here. Okay, so the outer cortex will be containing the Bowman's capsule, the proximal convoluted tubule and the distal convoluted tubule of a nephron. So if you see the medulla, it mainly contains the loop of Henle and the collecting duct of nephron. The renal cortex will continue down between the pyramids. These are the pyramids. So between the pyramids, the renal cortex will continue down between the pyramids as the renal columns. So these are called the renal columns. Now finally everything is ending inside the, so all the pyramids are ending as the renal papillae, which is ending into minor calyx. This minor calyx will unite together to form the major calyx. So this major calyx will unite together to form the renal pelvis. This renal pelvis will continue as that of the ureter, okay, which will be draining the urine. If you see the hilum, when you open up the kidney, we have a space which is present around the hilum, where these vessels and the renal pelvis is located, and this space is called the renal sinus, which is having variable amount of fat. You can see this is the fat which is located in the renal sinus. Coming to the blood supply of kidney, so the kidney receives its blood through a direct branch coming from the abdominal aorta. So this is the aorta. These are the renal arteries. Renal artery. So the right renal artery is longer when compared to that of the left renal artery. So if this is the right renal artery, is longer when compared to that of the left renal artery. This renal artery, as it reaches near the hilum and entering inside the hilum, it divides into two branches. A larger branch, which is the anterior branch, and a smaller posterior branch. This larger anterior branch carries up or almost 75% of the blood, and this posterior branch will be carrying about 25% of the blood. From here, this artery divides, this anterior division or the posterior division divides into the segmental branch. So depending, corresponding to the number of segments it is going to supply, it will be dividing into segmental branch. So these are the segmental branches. From the segmental branch, these segmental branch, once it reaches near the renal pyramids, so now we will draw the renal pyramids. So this is one renal pyramid which I have drawn. So as it reaches near the renal pyramid, it is going to divide into interlobar branches. Interlobar branches we can see here. So this is one interlobar branch, this is another interlobar branch. So these are the interlobar branch. So these are the lobar branches, this is interlobar branch, or these are the segmental branches, these are the interlobar branch. These interlobar branch run along the between the two lobes, and then it will terminate by dividing into arcuate branch. So these are the arcuate branches. So this is arcuate. Okay. Now these arcuate branches, there are many small arteries which will be arising from the arcuate branch, and these branch run perpendicularly into the cortex, and these branches are called the interlobular artery. These are the interlobular artery. Okay, these are called the interlobular artery. From the interlobular artery, so if you consider this as a single interlobular artery, so these interlobular artery will give many small branches. So these branches will form the capillary network inside the glomerulus. So these interlobular artery branch coming from the interlobular artery will be the afferent arteriole. Afferent arteriole, which is entering inside the glomerulus. Now we will draw the glomerulus. So this is the glomerulus. So this is how the afferent arterioles are entering inside. The afferent arterioles entering inside the glomeruli, and the efferent arterioles are coming out. And these efferent arterioles will be running inside the cortex, and it will be giving many small branches which will form network around this tubule itself in the cortex. And these branches will form the peritubular network. This will form peritubular network, which will be supplying the tubule in the cortex. Now we will complete the kidney for a better orientation. So now we are drawing the outline of the kidney. So this is how it is. and there are some of the branches which are called the straight arteries, otherwise called the vasa recta, which will be supplying the lower part of the or the inner part of the cortex. So this is the cortex. So this is the cortex. So it will be supplying the inner aspect of the cortex, and also it will be supplying the medulla. These are called the vasa recta, which will be supplying the inner aspect of the cortex and also the medulla. So this is about the blood supply of kidney. So depending on the number of segmental arteries, we are dividing the kidney into the regions. Now we'll see that. If you see the renal segments depending on the arterial distribution, the kidney can be divided into 5 segments. Kidney can be divided into 5 segments. So for both right and the left kidney, we have 5 arterial segments. So if you take this as the anterior aspect, take this as the anterior aspect, it has got an apical segment, then it has got upper anterior segment and a lower and upper anterior segment, middle anterior segment, upper anterior, middle anterior and lower segment. Okay. So it has got apical. So this is the apical segment. So upper anterior, middle anterior and lower segment. This is what you see from the anterior aspect. If you see from the posterior aspect, it has got the following segments. The same apical segment can be seen on the posterior aspect also. So it's the same apical segment. The lower segment is also seen from the posterior aspect. So apical and lower are common. Okay, so one is apical, 2 is lower segments. Then here we have on the posterior aspect, we have a single segment, that is the posterior segment. So we have a single segment on the posterior aspect, that is the posterior segment. So first one is apical, second one is lower segment, then we have upper anterior, middle anterior and posterior. So these are the 5 segments, arterial segments, which are supplying the kidney. Next, let's study the venous drainage. The kidney is drained by IVC. So what we are drawing right now is the IVC. Okay, so the left renal vein is longer than that of the right renal vein. So you can consider this as a left renal vein. This left renal vein is longer than that of the right renal vein, and it is more anteriorly placed. So some other tributaries also drain into the left renal vein, that is the left inferior phrenic vein, the left suprarenal vein. So from the suprarenal we have left suprarenal vein, and also the left gonadal vein, which will be draining into the left renal vein. Because of the longer course and the IVC is present more towards the right side, all these veins are draining into the left renal vein. Okay, but in case of right renal vein, there are no such veins which are draining into the right renal vein. So this is about the venous drainage of the kidney. Now coming to its nerve supply, kidney receives sympathetic supply. Kidney receives sympathetic supply through the pelvic splanchnic nerve, through the least splanchnic nerve, which will be supplying the blood vessels. Okay, which will be supplying the blood vessels of the kidney. Thus, stimulation of the sympathetic will cause vasoconstriction. Thereby redirecting the blood towards the important vital organs. So thereby redirecting the blood through to the important vital organs of the body. The parasympathetic to the kidney is through the vagus, through the branches coming from the vagus. At last, the sensory supply is actually the sensory fibers are carried to T10 and T11 spinal segments. So the pain is referred to the region which is supplied by T10 and T11 spinal nerves. That is about the nerve supply. Then coming to its lymphatic drainage. So lymphatic drainage. So the kidney is mainly drained by the hilar group of lymph nodes, which is located along the hilum of the kidney. If you take the hilum of the kidney, the hilar lymph nodes which are located along the hilum of the kidney, these are the hilar group of lymph nodes. Which will be draining the kidney, and also some of the lymphatics also drain into the aortic group of lymph nodes. So along the abdominal aorta we have some scattered groups of lymph nodes. These are the aortic group of lymph nodes. So the lymphatics also drain into the aortic groups. Okay, this is the aortic group. So it is draining into the hilar group and the aortic group of lymph nodes. This is about the lymphatic drainage of kidney. At last, coming to the applied importance, the most common applied importance of the kidney is renal calculi. Okay, this is one of the most common condition which will be presenting with acute pain abdomen, which will be radiating downwards from the loin to the groin. Okay, so these stones either it can be present only in the kidney or sometimes it can descend down through the ureter to form the ureteric calculi. So diagnosis for this will be usually ultrasound. Kidney is also one of the place where we can get renal cell carcinoma. Carcinomatous growth can occur in the kidney too. So there are so many congenital anomalies related to the kidney, like example horseshoe kidney and lobulated kidney, or absence of kidney agencies of the kidney on one side. So all these are the conditions of some of the applied importance related to its development. Contrast X-ray, which is used to locate the kidney and its function, is actually intravenous pyelogram. This pyelogram can be used to demonstrate the kidney radiographically. A single functional kidney is more than enough to perform the entire function for a particular individual. So kidney transplant is one of the very common transplant which is being performed now for chronic kidney disease. Okay, so this is the end of our class on kidney. Thank you.